Hi, Gigi. Come share an apple with me. I picked it fresh from Granny Smith's sinister tree. Don't mind my stories, you'll soon see. They're as dark and disturbing as they can be. Murmurs of secrets, bloody sodden crimes, Granny's bone-clicking tales will twist your mind. You'll be hanging on my words from the edge of your seats. Now how'd you like to go dig up some bodies with me? So go grab a shovel and gather around, 'cause 8 feet under is where they'll be found. This podcast contains detailed discussions of real-life crimes, which may include descriptions of violence, sensitive subject matter, and other potentially distressing content. Listener discretion is strongly advised. The material is intended for mature audiences only and may not be suitable for children or those who may find such topics triggering. Welcome back to 8 Feet Under with Granny Smith. I know I have been MIA for a few months. I actually recorded the 10th episode in the beginning of November, but then I slacked on editing it and releasing it. So many things happened with work and personal stuff and holidays. So yeah. I do have a guest for today. Sorry, you're going to hear a lot of laughing because we're not recording the visual, but we have our videos on. So it's just going to be a mess. Anyways, my best friend Brittany, say hello.
Hi, best friend. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Still goofy still.
Also, just some trigger warnings with audio. You know how I tell you, if you don't like it's not professional, leave. I somehow broke my mic stand, so I'm holding it, and I keep forgetting that I'm holding it, and sometimes I put it down to my side and all that. Bestie does not have a mic. She's at her house, so she's on her phone. Just try to focus on the story and not the quality or lack of quality.
Right. We're always on a budget right now.
Right. So before we get into today's story, I did want to share some information. You know, anytime I find out any information or resources for people who've gone through something, I try to share it with you. If you are ever in a situation where you think or you know or you suspect that you may have been drugged, whether you feel like you were assaulted or not, just even if you were just drugged, immediately go to a hospital and ask them to see what's called a SANE nurse. And I believe it's spelled SANE. From what I understand, not all hospitals have them. But basically, a SANE nurse is like a forensic nurse. They come in, they can do a rape kit, they can test you for date rape drugs, because the hospital cannot, are you listening to what I'm saying? The hospital, at least in Arizona, I don't know about anywhere else, cannot test you for ketamine, GHB, certain date rape drugs that are actually common, and that's wild. So they have a SANE nurse come in, do their workup, their blood, their urine, and they send that to a forensic lab. Or if you can't get to a hospital, there's actually phone numbers you can call, which I think I have one, but also you can just look it up, Google it, how to get in contact with a SANE nurse, and it's free. I know there's a line for like the East Valley and Tempe area, Chandler area. You call, it's like a beeper, a pager. If you don't know what that is, you're super young. You enter your phone number, they call you back, they set up an appointment. When you do a forensic exam, everything is voluntary. They tell you everything it includes. You could say, I want to do this, I don't want to do that. It's completely up to you. But time is crucial because a lot of those drugs leave your system within a few hours or a few days. If you don't get tested for date rape drugs within those time frames, you can go get a hair follicle test done, which costs thousands of dollars, unless you file a police report and the detective decides that they want you to go for a hair follicle test. Then they'll send you off for it. Sorry if my brain is like scattered on this. There's so much information around this, and there is a reason why I found this information out, and I will hopefully be able to tell you later on down the line. But again, if you feel like anything like that happened, go to a hospital, search where you can get speak with a SANE nurse or get a forensic workup done so you can get the proper testing, the urine and the blood, and done through the right lab, because again, most of these hospitals cannot do it themselves. Do not allow anybody to make you feel like you are an inconvenience, that you're just tripping, you're imagining things. That is why victims don't come forward. That is why people are so scared, because it's such a hassle. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're dealing with the police and these hospitals and these victims advocates and these resources, not all of them have the empathy that they should or the sympathy that they should, and they don't handle with care when it comes to victims sometimes. Not saying all of them are. There are some great people out there, but don't let that deter you from getting the justice or the answers that you need. Even if you don't know, especially if you don't know, if you're missing time, get the answers. Find out what happened if you can. Honor health.
Well said, best friend. Well said.
I feel like, because there was so much, I actually wrote, because I knew I was going to get distracted on this subject, I literally wrote out an actual word for word script on that, and I'm not even looking at it. I'm like, my armpits are
Sometimes
sweating.
when it comes from the heart, you know what I mean? And it comes from the heart, you got to say what's on your heart instead of what is on paper. It can't
Yeah,
always be written down. It has to come from within. So I
true.
think you did very well. So
Thank
don't
you.
worry. It might not have been on script, but sometimes it's got to go off script to be
Right.
powerful, baby. You
Right.
good.
So Honor Health, their forensic nurse, the phone number is 480-312-6340. I can't remember if that's the one that goes directly to them or if that's the one where it's like the pager beeper thing. But again, in your area, just Google it. Call your local non-emergency police and ask them, how do I get it? How do I get this done? This is what happened to me. What do I do about it? How do I get tested for whatever, or get, a rape kit done, whatever it may be. When you're talking to a stay nurse, at least through Honor Health, they do have protocols in place to keep you safe in case you're in a situation where you're still with that person who did or may have assaulted you. Like, I think it comes up a block number, or maybe it comes up Honor Health. They ask you permission, like if they could say your name, or I think they only call once and they don't leave a voicemail or something like that. So they have protocols in place in case you're still in not in a safe place. Here's another thing. One last thing I'm going to say. When you're in these situations, you will find out who your people are. There are going to be people, especially people who may have been with you when it happened, that are going to start to fall off and that I don't want to get involved. No, right is right, wrong is wrong in situations like that. And if there are people who are kind of distancing themselves for you, or they could be helping but they don't, sorry, that's not your people, because they wouldn't allow you to go through something like this alone. So to the people who stick by people who are going through this, I tip my hat to you, sir. Anyways, let's get back to why we fucking came here in the first place, right? I did again.
Jesus.
If y'all, I should have said in the beginning. Look, skip through the first 5 minutes if you don't want to hear any of this. Anyways, today's episode was a suggestion from Brittany, who also happens to be a young hot granny man. Okay, I just put your whole government name out there.
I know.
Like crazy.
I don't know.
So I do want to give her trigger warning. This does involve a child, and the details are pretty rough. Today's story is not just disturbing, but devastating, about the disappearance and murder of a sweet, gentle, shy 11-year-old boy whose life was stolen by the very person who was supposed to protect him. This case was built on layered lies, manipulation, a nationwide manhunt that gripped the country, a suitcase thrown from a bridge more than 1,300 miles from home, and at the center of it all was a stepmother who spun lies and stories to cover her evil actions. So grab those bedazzled shovels so we can dig 8 feet into the story of Gannon and Letecia Stauch. Now, I don't know if I'm saying that name wrong, but when I looked it up, it says it's pronounced as if it rhymes with hawk. So apologies if I'm saying that wrong. Do you know how it's pronounced, Brittany?
If it says that you pronounce it right, if that's how it's pronounced.
But anyways, sources for today are a March 2020 ABC article written by Ella Torres and Clayton Sandel, a 2025 People article written by Chris Spargo, and the rest will be in the show notes. So, before we talk about the crime, we talk about the child, because Gannon wasn't just a headline. He was a sweet little boy. Yeah. Gannon was born on September 29th, 2008 in South Carolina. His parents are Landon Hoyt and Al Stauch. The poor baby did not have an easy entrance into this world from day one. At trial, his dad, Albert, also known as Al, described Gannon arriving about 4 months premature, weighing just 1 pound 6 ounces. He talked about how Gannon had collapsed lungs, feeding tubes, and long days in the NICU. He couldn't even hold his son until weeks after he was born. So this little poor baby was literally fighting for life from day one. As Gannon grew, he dealt with ongoing health issues, stomach problems, ADHD, anxiety, developmental delays, and he was held back a grade to give him time to catch up, but people who knew him said you'd never guess that he started off that far behind. Despite all that, those who know him described him as sweet, kind, sensitive, and a rule follower, the kind of kid who apologized even when he didn't do anything wrong. He loved video games, especially his Nintendo Switch, Legos, superheroes, and helping take care of his little sister, Lena. Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty name.
Yeah. Teachers described him as polite and soft-spoken and a child who just wanted everybody to get along. In the time leading up to his death, he was dealing with medicated-related concerns, and these vulnerabilities would later be twisted and exploited in lies. This was a child who trusted adults, especially his stepmother, Letecia. So that's Gannon, a kid who started tiny and fragile and turned into this smiling, game-playing, big-hearted 11-year-old fifth grader at Grand Mountain School in Colorado. In high school? Nope. That part's staying in. Anyways, so let's talk about the woman who later claimed, quote, loved him like her own, end quote. So Letecia, also known as Tecia Hardin, was born on August 4th, 1983 in North Carolina. According to family interviews and later court testimony, her childhood was unstable. There was frequent conflict in the home, a strained relationship with her biological father. There were allegations of physical discipline, and she described him as abusive. From an early age, Letecia craved control and validation. On the surface, she projected perfection, organized, outgoing, involved, but behind closed doors, relationships deteriorated quickly with her. People who knew her described her as manipulative, vindictive, explosive when challenged, obsessed with image, and a compulsive liar. So, she sounds great.
Just fantastic.
Right? She grew up in the Carolinas. Later reporting says that she was an honor roll student, active in school activities, and went on to earn degrees in education, having at least one master's degree in curriculum or education, and she later would even claim to have a doctorate. I don't understand how people claim to have degrees. Like, isn't there a board of education to prove it? Like, you can't find out?
No, but people think that you can't pretend to be is like somebody like a lawyer or a doctor.
Well, that's what she's saying. She has a doctorate. So it's like, doesn't the Board of
Education
holds all that?
Actually, yeah, that's true. It should be illegal to say you're a doctor when you're not. You're absolutely right. It is.
I guess maybe if she just claimed to have a doctorate doesn't mean, isn't harmful because she's not actually practicing.
Right, if she's not practicing. Man, that's still...
Take me through that. Okay, anyway. She married a man named Chance Hunt and had a daughter, Harley, in 2002. They separated in 2008. Chance later died of a drug overdose in 2014, which, side note, by her history now, I'm suspicious of that. And at trial in a later reporting, it came out that Letecia misled Harley for years about her father's death. Professionally, she worked in education in Horry, Horry County, South Carolina, starting as a paraprofessional around 2010 and then later as a special education teacher. But there were issues. Her South Carolina teaching certificate was eventually revoked, and documents show her Colorado certification, good God, was permanently revoked after she failed to appear in a disciplinary hearing. So there's a pattern. She gets hired, there's conflict or a breach of contract, and then she leaves or gets fired. So around 2013, softball brought her into the path of Al Stauch. They meet at games in the Myrtle Beach area, and at that time, Al was separated from Landon, who is Gannon's biological mother, and shares custody of Gannon and Lena. By January 2015, and Letecia were married, and then their blended family now includes Gannon and Lena from Al's first marriage, Harley, Letecia's daughter, and then later they have one biological child together. Outwardly, Letecia played the role of devoted stepmother. Privately, resentment was festering. Evidence later revealed disturbing search histories and messages including, "I'm over it," "Why should I have to deal with this kid?" "Parenting burnout," and "I hate my stepson." So this wasn't a sudden snap. This was a storm that was building up over time with this lady. Because of Al's work in the Colorado Army National Guard, the family moves multiple times, from South Carolina to Alaska, down to Colorado Springs, eventually settling in a rental home in the Larson Ranch area. By late 2019, the marriage is strained. Prosecution later argues that Letecia resented being left to handle the kids while Al was away, feeling like, quote, an unpaid babysitter, end quote, and that she was deeply unhappy.
You took on the role marrying this man, right? That means
Correct.
You are his parent now. You can't just tap out just because times get hard. That's not what parenting is. So I'm so confused. Why'd you take the job, baby, if you didn't want it,
That word babysitter, when parents use that, there was somebody who I'll say offline, because I'm not going to put the name out there, but whenever he had his son, he would always be like, we'd be talking on the phone, he's like, "Oh, I'm babysitting right now." I'm like, babysitting? Isn't that your child? That's weird to me when parents refer to spending time with their kids as babysitting. That's wild. But anyways.
Instead of parenting, which is what it should be called. Crazy word.
Carrying on. She briefly teaches at French elementary school in the Widefield School District in Colorado. She was hired in 2019 and then gone by November of that same year. Defense attorneys will later say that Letecia had severe mental issues that were rooted from horrific childhood abuse and that she sought help for anxiety in late 2019. Prosecutors counter that with a long list of manipulative behaviors, false police reports, and lies that predated this crime by years. So, by January of 2020, inside that house on Larson Ranch, we have an 11-year-old boy who started life fighting to survive, a dad away on National Guard duty, a stressed, angry stepmother who feels overlooked and trapped. So basically a blended family dynamic that was being held together by duct tape, like by the skin of their teeth.
Duct tape is kind of too strong, if you ask me. It just snapped.
Mm-hmm. Then one day, everything breaks. On January 27th, 2020, Gannon stayed home sick, and I'm using air quotes, from work. Nope, from school. Oh my God.
My best friend is a good podcaster. She do her research. Okay, she gives you the story. She got all the receipts. Yeah, she got all the receipts. Come on, baby. That's my girl. All right.
Oh my God. Okay. Back to it. At 6:55 p.m. that day, Letecia called the police from their home in Colorado Springs reporting Gannon missing. She told the deputies that Gannon left the house around 3:15 p.m. to walk to his friend's house, and then he never came back. The case was initially classified as a juvenile runaway, but almost immediately things didn't sit right. On January 29th, during a formal interview, Letecia changed her story completely. She now claimed a man broke into their home and held her at gunpoint, then raped her. She said this was a Hispanic man by the name Eduardo, and that the same man abducted Gannon after he attacked her. So investigators immediately recognized the story as fabricated, and they take her for a sexual assault exam to collect DNA, which would either help prove or disprove her story. According to the arrest affidavit, once she's at the hospital, she suddenly complains of a different medical issue, then leaves before the forensic exam can be done. So no evidence was collected, no DNA, nothing to back up her claim. And then from that moment on, she pretty much stopped cooperating entirely. But at the same time, digital forensics were painting a very different picture of her mindset. Investigators later say they found search history showing that she was unhappy in her marriage and resentful as a step-parent, with queries like, quote, "I don't like my stepson," and questions about moving out of state. So now we got a swirl of lies, a runaway kid story, a stranger rape, a kidnapping, and in the background, a woman Googling how much she hates her stepson just days before he vanishes.
I can't. Like, what? What did this boy, what could he have done? You know? What could he have done?
And I wish I could tell you it gets better. On January 30th, investigators upgraded the case, so Gannon is now officially classified as a missing and endangered child. New evidence has made them worry that this isn't just a kid who slipped out of his bedroom window. So over the next few days, volunteers lined up at search commands, kids in the neighborhood held prayer circles, and the search included aerial drones, search and rescue canines, the FBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the Colorado Springs Police.
No, come on. And he was so loved. That's what she messed up. You knew something was messed up with her. Because when somebody is that loved and they doing all that, that means you the one that's messed up. You the only one that feel like this about an 11-year-old child. You the only one. Oh my God. She was messed up.
So at first, Letecia plays the role of the worried stepmom. She gives a TV interview to local station KKTV, insisting that she had nothing to do with Gannon's disappearance and complaining about people judging her. Letecia states, quote, "I took care of Gannon for the last 2 years in our home. I would never, ever hurt this child. And I know there are some questions out there. That's up to the investigation. When they end up letting you guys know, but I've cooperated with them," end quote. She also told KKTV, quote, "We are going to find Gannon, and that's the main goal we all have. I'm just ready for Gannon to come home," end quote. Then she says that the family received over 20 death threats. Detectives are starting to see so many red flags. Her timeline keeps changing. Her description of Gannon's last known movements doesn't match what the cameras caught. And then she seems more focused on how she's being portrayed more than focusing on the missing child.
She's disgusting.
Correct. On February 3rd, crime scene techs and investigators start a much deeper search of the house. They focus on Gannon's bedroom, and inside the home they find bloodstains in Gannon's bedroom, blood soaked through the mattress, blood spatter on the walls, and a blood-soaked area beneath the carpet roughly the size of a watermelon.
My God.
In the garage, they find blood on the floor and evidence consistent with moving a body. And then about 40 miles south of Colorado Springs, the police find a piece of a particle board containing Gannon's blood. On February 4th, a neighbor named Roderick Drayton reviews his security footage and he comes forward. So he has video from January 27th at 10:13 a.m. showing Letecia walking towards her truck and Gannon is following behind her. Then Gannon slowly climbs into the vehicle, appearing unwell. Later that day, the footage shows at 2:19 p.m. the truck returned, but Gannon wasn't inside. When Gannon's father Al was shown this footage, Drayton later recalled, quote, "He broke down crying and said she lied. She lied about the time. He didn't go to a friend's house," end quote. On February 5th, Gannon's biological mother, Landon, made a public plea. Through tears, she says, quote, "A kid doesn't just disappear and no one sees him. Imagine my son. Imagine how afraid he is," end quote. Beside her is Gannon's little sister, and she whispers, quote, "I love you, Bubba," end quote.
Oh, man.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Oh, my God.
So sad.
That's so sad.
So on February 16th, police say that they received 555 tips, but Gannon still hasn't been found.
Jesus.
Yeah.
555 tips is crazy.
But I see that, you see that a lot. Like when you watch documentaries or read these stories, like these tips, sometimes they get thousands. And what sucks is having to sift through all those and finding out some people could just call shit in just for the fuck of it. Like to taunt it. You know what I mean? Just false. Oh, I saw this person here or there, and it's just wasting so much time and manpower. And people, for whatever reason, seem to get off on that.
Ridiculous.
I don't understand it.
It's sick. People are sick and they're weird. I'm sorry. Yeah. As quiet as it's kept, it's very scary.
Very. So based on the evidence, police have a theory of what happened. They believe on January 27th, while Al was away on National Guard duty, Letecia attacked Gannon in his bedroom. She then cleans everything up, moves the body, and then begins staging this whole missing child scenario. So on February 28th, 2020, a judge approved an arrest warrant for Letecia. The charges were first-degree murder of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, child abuse resulting in death, tampering with a deceased human body, tampering with physical evidence. And she fled the state. So on March 2nd, 2020, authorities announced that Letecia had been arrested in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where she'd gone after leaving Colorado. She's held there without bond and then later extradited back to El Paso County, Colorado. I almost said California. Colorado. And at this point, remember, Gannon is still missing. The charges were based on the blood evidence, the timeline, and the belief that he's no longer alive, but his body still hasn't been found.
Right. All that blood, it's hard to believe that he's alive at that point. Yeah.
I know. According to an affidavit, authorities say that she tried to engineer a jail escape, asking a fellow inmate to help her with a plan and allegedly talking about prying open a window and running. That
Girl, be so for real.
Right. Like you could just pop the bar off the jail.
Okay, come on.
Bye.
Wait a minute. Can't be this slow. There ain't no way.
Hey, maybe.
There ain't no way. Can't escape.
So that leads to an extra charge of solicitation to commit escape. So even after her arrest, this pattern continues: lying, scheming, trying to find a way out. On March 11th, Letecia made her first appearance in Colorado court. She didn't speak a word, but the police knew that Letecia was their suspect and they filed over 100 search warrants. And then, almost 2 months after Gannon disappeared, on March 17th, 2020, a Florida Department of Transportation worker noticed a suitcase beneath the Escambia River Bridge in Pace, Florida. Anyway, everybody knows to expect that I'm going to mess up some words. Yeah. So inside were the remains of little Gannon, more than 1,300 miles from home, and the autopsy revealed, major trigger warning, 18 stab wounds, four blunt force injuries, and 1 gunshot wound to the face. So to me, this was not panic. This was an intentional, planned act of violence.
Yes, it was personal.
What was initially just a theory has now become a horrific reality. Using the neighbor's surveillance, GPS data, rental car records, phone records, and witness testimony, investigators determined that Letecia did kill Gannon on January 27th, hid his body in her vehicle in the garage, rented a car to go pick up Al from the airport, drove 40 miles south and disposed of the body, then returned days later to retrieve the remains, stuffed Gannon into a suitcase, traveled across state lines, and then dumped the suitcase from that Florida bridge.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah. Sorry, that's not random. You planned all of that.
All of that.
At his memorial in 2020, friends and family called him, quote, genuine, kind, funny, and always smiling, end quote. A description that comes up time and time again in local coverage. So from 2020 to 2023, this case winds its way through the court system. Defense attorneys will later say Letecia had severe mental issues rooted from her horrific childhood abuse and that she sought help for anxiety in 2019. All right. So in November of 2021, Letecia enters a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity to first-degree murder and more than a dozen other related charges, claiming multiple personalities. At one point, she even tries to represent herself, waiving her right to counsel, but the court reverses that and later it appoints her an attorney again. So Letecia is ordered to undergo multiple competency evaluations at the Colorado Mental Health Institute at Pueblo to determine if she understands the charges and if she can assist in her defense. Ultimately, court-ordered psychiatric evaluations rejected the claim and experts found her competent to stand trial. But then, COVID-19 shows up and shows its ass.
Great.
And slows everything down. So hearings were pushed back, trial dates were moved, delays, the world is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
During this time, Letecia is moved between facilities and then eventually ends up in a Kansas prison. So for 3 years, Gannon's family and the community grieve as this case is stuck between mental health evaluations, pandemic delays, and a tangle of legal arguments. But by the spring of 2023, finally went before a jury. The trial begins in April of 2023 in Colorado Springs, more than 3 years after Gannon's death. The prosecution and the defense are both very clear about one thing. Letecia did kill Gannon, but their disagreement is about why and whether she was legally sane when she did it. So, the prosecution, which was led by District Attorney Michael Allen, lay out their narrative that is brutal but simple. During the prosecution's opening, they state that on the same day Gannon disappeared, Letecia texted her daughter Harley asking her to pick up carpet cleaner, trash bags, and baking soda, all things that prosecution argues she used to scrub and deodorize the scene. They state on January 27, 2020, while Al was on National Guard deployment, Letecia made the deliberate choice to kill her stepson in his bedroom. She stabbed him 18 times, beat him, and shot him. She then cleaned the scene, hid his body, lied to investigators, and then drove across country to throw his remains off the bridge in Florida.
Sweet Jesus.
During opening statements, Allen calls the murder, quote, deliberate and thoughtful, and emphasizes how she cleaned up Gannon's room. He stated, quote, there were no obvious signs of a struggle or murder because the defendant had cleaned them up, end quote. The prosecution called over 80 witnesses, including detectives, forensic experts, Gannon's parents, FBI agents, and Letecia's own brother and family members, who all described her behavior as suspicious. They bring in crime scene analysts to walk the jury through the blood evidence in Gannon's room and on the particle board, digital forensic experts to talk about the internet searches and her cell phone data, and the medical examiner who testified about the stabbing, the blunt force trauma, and the gunshot wound. And then there's Al. On day 2 of the trial, he takes the stand and talks about Gannon's birth. At 4-month premature, 1 pound, 6-ounce baby with a collapsed lung, and how he first got to hold his son on October 20th, 2008. He tells the jury that he believes Letecia was 100% sane. Letecia's half-brother Dakota says that he initially felt that his sister was being falsely accused of killing Gannon. He stated, quote, I feel like we're getting looked at as criminals, end quote. Later, he tells the story of how he unknowingly helped her move the suitcase with Gannon's body in it. He flew across the country to help Letecia move out of the home after Gannon disappeared and her relationship with Al started to fall apart. Dakota states that he was helping Letecia load the car with her belongings and he noticed that she was struggling with the suitcase. So he offered to help her. She rejected his help and claimed that the suitcase contained, quote, softball stuff. He said it was at that moment that he knew for sure she killed Gannon. Like, could you imagine? Like, what do you do? And it's like you want to know what's in the suitcase, but then you're terrified to even really know, you know? It just... Anyway, moving on. Leticia's daughter Harley talks about feeling manipulated and describes a mother who used threats of self harm and dramatic lies, like falsely claiming to be pregnant, in order to control the people around her.
Gross. Gross.
The prosecution's message is clear. This wasn't a mental breakdown. This was an angry, resentful woman who chose to kill a child and then did everything she fucking could to get away with it. So the defense doesn't even try to pretend that the crime didn't happen. In fact, one of the attorneys, Will Cook, tells the jury essentially, quote, "We know she killed him," end quote. Their argument is about the mental state still. They claim Letecia suffered a, quote, "major psychotic crack," end quote, on the day of the killing, rooted in a lifetime of trauma. Cook and their expert witness, psychiatrist Dr. Dorothy Otnow Lewis, describe a child where she was physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by men her mother brought into the home, a little girl who sometimes slept in the car to get away from those men, an adult who developed dissociative identity disorder, slipping between altered personalities. They claim that when she killed Gannon, she wasn't really killing her stepson in her mind. She was killing and attacking the, quote, demons, end quote, from her past. It's a complicated argument and not one that the jury tends to embrace easily, especially when confronted with methodical cleanup and cross-country body disposal. Finally, on May 8th, 2023, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. First-degree murder of a child by a person in position of trust, child abuse resulting in death, tampering with the deceased human body, and tampering with evidence. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus 156 years. The judge told her, quote, "Your actions were the most horrific I have ever seen," end quote. But evil didn't fully take his story, and it sure as hell didn't take his light, because people still speak his name and they still remember his kindness, and we make damn sure that the monster who did this never walks free again. I almost said never walks again. Sometimes,
but somebody break her legs, break that heifer's legs in prison. She don't need to walk around. She don't need them anyway.
The stuff that in my head comes out of my mouth, and I'm human. Whatever. I'm a mom. And
come on, let's be for real. Yeah, anybody who doesn't get pissed off just a little at this story is crazy. This baby did not have to die. Especially, that's such a brutal way to murder somebody. I don't care. Take her arms too.
Not her arms,
girl.
Lord. Yeah. So judge me not.
Quadriplegic.
Not quadriplegic.
I visualize they treating her in prison. I hope. One can only dream.
And that, Granny's Gravediggers, is the story of the murder of Gannon Stauch. Now you know what time it is. Shovels up.
I got mine ready.
Debrief and discuss. Do we think she was really insane?
No.
Jinx, you want me to say?
No. Absolutely not. She's a psychopath, sure, but crazy, no.
And it doesn't, like we've, again, and I've said this on multiple episodes, I do not empathize with the adult version of her. The abused version of her as a child, of course, like that should not happen to anyone. However, it does not excuse people who grow up to be murderers.
Stop using it as an excuse to do ridiculous and horrific things. That is terrible. That baby did not have to die that way. And it's such a brutal way to die. Like, it's killing me. Like, how the blood, my God, when you started to describe the blood, or is it in the walls, on the floor, in the bed, that baby died terribly. And she shot him after she stabbed him 19 times. Are you kidding?
Overkill. So, I don't think she was crazy. Do I think she suffered from depression, anxiety, PTSD from past trauma? Sure. Again, it does not excuse it. We all do. It doesn't excuse it. Yes, it does affect us, but it does not excuse, again, people becoming rapists, murderers, well, all those terrible things. I would like to say I hope you all enjoy the story. It's a horrific story. You can't enjoy it, but...
Yeah.
It's
a good story.
It is a good story. I don't know, again, like I've said multiple times, if I heard of it or not. I've been watching and listening to true crime stuff for so long, it kind of blends together.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for the suggestion and for coming on my podcast. My pits are sweating because my fan isn't fucking facing me, and I'm leaving that part in. You're fucking welcome. Like, I gotta get in front of my fan right now. So keep the suggestions coming. I did change my everybody.
No, I'm the only one that's important. Are you serious?
Okay. All right. Sorry.
And leave that part in. I
will. Again, keep the suggestions coming, I guess, only from Brittany. I did change
you guys can DM me your suggestions and I will see if they're worthy enough. I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm just kidding.
My suggestion manager?
Yes.
Anyways, I did change my handle a little bit. I removed the underscore. So it's now at the number 8. FTUNDERGS 85. See, it still works with the song Val. Val loves when I do that. So I still got you, Val. And that's for TikTok, IG, and X. And I did change that, I think, to where you can search it that way on Facebook as well. If not, you can just spell it out, 8 Feet Under with Granny Smith on Facebook. Until next crime, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, an apple a day keeps the freaking murderers away.
Oh, we'll talk
Love
about
you.
me
Goodbye.
too. Bye.